serrated guardian.
Hmm.
So since you brought it up, what are your thoughts on this one? And this one is designed to be carried on a plate carrier, usually military law enforcement type application.
Right. Yeah, that's what Todd was saying about that one. That it definitely had a specialized usage.
Mm-hmm.
I actually picked up one of those. They had a nice sale going on, and I had been eyeballing it for a while.
Right.
Looking forward to the trainer when it comes out.
Well, you got this one, which is the D2, which is a little close.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
close.
no, I held up Todd's and was holding it next to my knife, and I was like, okay, well, that's a little different, but I do like it. I think it's a beautiful blade, and then understanding a little bit more about the application with it, it makes sense. It is pretty scary, and what I would say is that something like that. I mean, I feel like throwing that in your bug out bag. If you needed to lash that off to a stick or something like that and use it for more of a long distance defense, or if you were in a house and could attach that to a stick if somebody's trying to come in a door or a window, I mean, you can make a mean tool out of that. And I don't want to see it as what it is being the final draw with it. I feel like that's something that has a lot of utilitarian purpose. So I really did enjoy the knife. I have pretty big hands. I did notice that it felt more comfortable for me when I had gloves on, which
Mm-hmm.
is traditional. If I was going to be running with my plate carrier and a
Right.
carbine, I'm probably going to be gloved up. So that did kind of change things for me a little bit too, because with my just regular hand, I was like, wow, there's all this play. But the minute I put gloves on, it sealed the deal for me.
So, what's your
So
thoughts on this for, let's say, for me, if I was doing a law enforcement type operation with this versus a knife like this, which is the Spindrift or the Aculus that we spoke of earlier?
I'm going to throw this out there, not necessarily isolating for civilian or law enforcement, but I want something to come very clear here. Make no mistake that if you ever had to use a knife on somebody, you now, when you're shopping for your knife, never let it fool you that you're shopping for Exhibit A. Okay? And I'm not saying that this knife is any more dangerous than this one. But the way a jury may look at these two knives sitting side by side,
Mm-hmm.
they may think of the person that would buy a knife like this as maybe being a different individual than a person who would buy a knife that looks like this. So you have to think about, the lack of a better term, officer on site. You know, I've had times where I was confronted by an officer with one of these in California, and he tried to swear to me that it was illegal, and I had to kind of clarify what the laws are, and then we did come to an understanding, but it was just the nature of it. It looks so aggressive. It looks like a tool that's meant to harm somebody. This looks like something I could open my mail with. So really, when you're buying a tool, I also talk with some of my students defensively about their firearm, what firearm they carry.
Right.
I know a lot of officers that have really nice firearms, but even if the department allowed them to, they don't want to modify their gun at all because they don't want the interpretation of the tool to change.
So,
Um,
so my question for you then is a knife like this that much more advantageous for me to use to defend myself that I should buy this and risk all of the image things that you're talking about versus a knife like this or this one that maybe doesn't look as scary?
yeah, well, I would say that the purpose that this knife was designed for, um, the purpose that this knife was designed for does not rely upon the judgment of a jury. That is a knife that is designed for a combative approach
Right.
that is for a military or law enforcement application or to the way it was explained to me is that's a sentry knife, which is similar to the Fairborn Sykes approach, where the purpose of that knife is to sneak up behind somebody and to end their life with the least amount of sound possible.
Okay.
So,
So,
with that being said, that knife has a very special application, and a knife like this is very utilitarian. It could be found in any common department store without it having a special development for the purpose of harming an individual, which is very close to this. This is a knife that's made for defensive application to cause the most amount of damage with the least amount of effort. Whereas in something like this is a utilitarian tool that it could be in my tackle box or it could be on my hip and people wouldn't think anything any different of it.
would you
So
say that I'm at a disadvantage with this knife if I carry this versus the other one for the purpose of self defense? I mean, this is
yes,
if
none
somebody's
whatsoever.
attacking me and
No
I've got to defend
disadvantage
myself.
whatsoever. I
Okay.
would say that this actually would put you at a bit more of disadvantage without any training. If you had to pick up either of those knives and try to figure out how to be effective with them without any training, I feel like this would be a much more natural transition, just because of the fact that the majority of us adults have been cutting something or another
Our
since
whole
we
life.
were a teenager or since we were a young person, right? So this is going to transition much better to something that would be in your kitchen or in your workshop or whatever. Whereas in this is going to require some specialty training, and it was meant for a particular type of approach from the rear of an individual.
And we want
Um,
to make it very clear, if there's those of you that are using this overseas to keep America safe, we say thank you very much and we support you
Absolutely,
100% in doing whatever's necessary to protect our
absolutely.
freedom. So we don't want to. This isn't intended to talk negatively on anybody or any specific knife.
No,
I just am trying to get the point across and the understanding to myself that you and I can be just as effective with this knife, with or even more so, according to Patrick, with the proper amount of training than we could be with some of these other knives that look really cool. The reason that I have this knife, again, it's a cool collector's piece. It's intended to sit in a case for me. Maybe I'll throw it on some body armor for training purposes to look cool on the gram. That's it. So,
yeah.
all right.
And yeah, my biggest emphasis is that they're all just different purposeful knives. And when you really start talking with the makers of these things and you get their vision, that's when really it starts to shine, you know.
Right.
But no, it really doesn't take much. I mean, a lot of my teachers used to tell me, tell me where you want that much. You can pick anywhere you want. You can say your butt, but that's where a lot of nerves end. So, you know, it doesn't take a lot once you learn to be efficient and accurate. But a lot of people, they see these things and they're attractive to the eye and they don't have the need for that specialized approach, but they don't also think about how that selection might be interpreted if they ever really had to use that knife. You know, that officer is going to show up on scene and they're going to see this very specialized knife that looks like it has a specific purpose versus something that's a bit more generalized that could have very well been just for utilitarian purposes. And now it's not to say that that makes you innocent or guilty by any means, but I know that media and perception, a lot of these things are playing a much bigger presence in defense cases nowadays than it
Than they
used
ever
to. It
have.
used to just be about the facts, you know. So now it's a bit more about feelings and interpretation and things like that. And, you know, so I do try to stress that to my students. It's just, you know, be aware of the first gut feeling that people get when they see your knife, you know, and realize that if you ever have to use that, that this is all going to seem kind of normal to you because you train it and all of that, but that it's still going to be something that's going to be under that microscope, so to speak. Every choice. Why did you choose this knife? Well, you know, what is it made for? Well, who makes it? Has anybody else ever been cut with one of these? And, you know, all of that stuff is going to come into question. So, um, you know, I don't want to be super flashy, but I do need something I can be effective with. Um, but nonetheless, something like this, or even this little guy here, in the right hands, more than dangerous. You know,
Right.
it's not the knife; it's the human being behind it. We always say that the knife isn't the weapon. You know, it's just an extension of your brain, and your brain is the weapon. So.
Right. Cool.